All right, thanks, Ayush. Hi, everyone. If you haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Caitlin, and I recently joined the Filecoin Foundation as the TPM for governance. And as Ayush also introduced earlier, we're beginning a transition where I'll begin helping to facilitate these meetings going forward. So today, if there's any glitches, appreciate your patience. And in the next week or so, you may begin to see updated meeting invitations, etc. But insofar as the meetings will continue on a biweekly basis, there shouldn't be any procedural changes. So you're welcome to continue to submit agenda items as you have been previously. And if there's ever a meeting where you're unable to attend, you're welcome to send someone in your place or also access any of the recording materials afterwards in the same TPM GitHub repo. So with that, I think we can just jump into team updates. Lotus, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so not so much going on in Lotus. We just released 1.11 to RC1, which I mentioned last time, introduced the DEX store, and we're officially launching the stable version to the community. So right now we are doing the testing process. It introduced the latest proof release, and I think there are some bugs in the GPU, because in the GPU for C2 and window post, we are working with MinerX to figure it out. But that train is going, and hopefully it goes well. And pretty much that's it in the Lotus land.
Great. Ayush or anyone else? Anything to add? All right, great. So thanks so much, Jenny. We can jump down to the Forest team.
Hey. Yeah, so I mean, there's not too much, heavy lifting that we're doing in the next few weeks or so, or the last few weeks. We're mainly, putting on the cherry on the top and trying to get, a little release going a little bit soon. So, we're making a push on documentation, all the user-facing stuff. I feel like I said this last week as well, or last time we met, but yeah, it's user-facing stuff. There's a lot of stuff there. So we're doing that. Debugging a few consensus issues here and there, but I think, working with the proofs team and with the specs actors team, we figured out some stuff. So that's really nice. So yeah, oh, I see Dudley has his hand raised. I'm not sure if he has a question. Do you have a question, Dudley?
I do indeed. Thank you very much. So I think I missed the last meeting here. How are you guys doing with the audit? I noticed some people from Lease Authority, or was it Super Prime? Sorry, too many audits. I've requested access to the document. Have they been reviewing the remediations?
No, I don't. I mean, there's no news on the audit side of things. I mean, so with respect to audit remediation, all the things that we said we were going to audit are pretty much done. So yeah, was somebody supposed to reach out to us, or how is that supposed to work, Dudley?
Yeah, so I will re-ping the room there and get someone to check the results, because sometimes auditors are, super annoying. They're like, you didn't fix this properly, or maybe they have important things to say. I don't know. But once that's done, then we'll work on getting a blog out.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Ayush has his hand up.
Yeah, want to know more about this consensus issue that you were debugging proof spec actors, kind of what's going on? I'm sure others will be interested as well.
Yeah, so there was an issue with proofs library where it was panicking when accepting empty proofs, which I'm not sure why that's happening, but we're looking into it with I'm looking into it with Wyatt. I don't know if he's here today.
So, but is the difference that Lotus and the other implementations are trapping that panic and move forward, whereas y'all what was the break in consensus there?
So the break in consensus, I think it has to do with some of the error handling that goes on when the proofs crosses FFI boundaries with so in between Go and the REST implementation. So there's some differences in how we handle the batch verify seals syscalls. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions for the Forest team before we jump down to Fuhan? All right. Then Fuhan, you're up.
Thank you, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. So for Fuhan, Nothing major happening. There is quite a lot of stuff to be done on the user-facing stuff, as Forrest team mentioned. So we are also currently working on preparing the proper documentation for all the necessary parts of the project. Well, we have also a different stakeholder of our internal security team, which also be using that. And we are also currently establishing a scope for the internal security audit, as we decided to not to wait for the outsourced auditors to go through our solution. We have also been able to resolve the issue with Lotus Miner plus Fuhon node, which was not, well, the issue was a Fuhon node was not able to properly propagate the block which was generated by the miner, and we have basically discovered the source of the issue and resolved that. Currently, we are in the process of testing the deals, storage deal, retrieval deal, and so on. So yeah, we are also quite actively working on testing on InteropNet as well as on local machines. So this is something we want to finish as soon as possible. Our internal date for the release is currently established for September 10th. But it might be a little bit later if the scope of the audit will change or something serious will be found. So that's our plan and the status.
Sounds great. And we can follow up with you closer to the September 10th deadline also to get a more accurate picture of when the release is likely to actually be scheduled so that we can update the documentation as well.
It is.
Yeah, coming. All right. Wonderful. Thank you. And now onto the Venus team.
Hi, everyone. In last 2 weeks, Venus team is still working on, actually heavily working on the incubation program to help people to join the program. Currently, we have about more than 50 applications received, and we have now 7 clients have been connected to the network, and they are growing the power smoothly, and other 6 are working in progress. We're still communicate with more users and to let them in the network in next weeks. This is one part we're working on, and regarding the development, we are working on 2 parts. One is about the storage market implementation. We get many feedbacks actually from the community, and ask us to support the storage market as soon as possible. So we invested more resources into this. Now we plan to have this module be available in 3 or 4 weeks. We hope that will be working well. You know that because the architecture of the Venus is not the same as Lotus, so the current Lotus market module cannot work with the Venus software. So we'll design a new one, and we hope we can consider to leverage the storage pool for the storage market, and for example, to because in one storage pool we have multiple miners, right? So we may in the future we could have the pool to get the deal, and then distribute it to its miners, perhaps randomly or based on the reputation, and that is under consideration. Okay, and another part is about the reward sharing implementation. For the pool, we have designed the mechanism, and we're working on the reward sharing algorithm, and also we're handling the orphan blocks and other issues to identify this kind of issues is because of the platform or because of the individual miners, so that we could share reward fairly. That is in progress. We also expect that could be available about 1 month. Okay, I think that's all. Any questions?
Thanks, Stephen. I think Jennifer might have a question.
Yeah, I think I have 2 questions. First of all, like, great news. Like, I know the committee has been asking for market feature in Venus, so I'm super looking forward to that. I just have like 2 questions regarding it. The first one is to the reward mechanism. I'm wondering if you can share more about the design with us, like the other implementers, or like how you are going to do the reward distribution a little bit more. And also for the market, it's great. Like you mentioned that you're going to design a new field market instead of using the module Lotus is using. So like, I'm very interested in how you are going to integrate that in the storage pool mechanism like Venus have, especially if your node will be distributing deals to the miners. I'm wondering, is the Venus pool going to maintain a reputation system among the miners, like to choose the client, to choose the storage provider for the client? Like what's the design so far?
Okay, yeah. Okay, let me answer the question one by one. For the first question is about the reward sharing, right? For that we had a design, and we also have a document. But the document is not revealed right now. We'll release that with the implementation very soon. So all of this will be open sourced, absolutely, and we'll put it in the GitLab, GitHub. Because there are still something under discussion, so we'll not release it right now. I will discuss with the team and say if we can release that in 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, that is for the first one. And the second one, about the market module, I would think at the first release we'll not implement all the things I mentioned, including to leverage the pool and to distribute the deals to different miners. We will have a very first simple version to let people could make a deal with the miner, specified actually. So the pool will not manage all the miners and to help the clients to issue the deals. That will be the next step. It's not the current one will be available in September. So for that one, we just have a rough idea. We need to have more discussing and to have a design in more detail. So if you have if anyone here have some ideas, you're very welcome to to let us know, and we will we'll incorporate that into our design. But anyway, that is our next step, not at this version. Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have many good ideas right now because it is a fairly tricky thing. Which is why I think many of us are very interested in seeing what the initial design is, and then we'll be happy to provide feedback or try to see if it makes sense, if it's fair, if it works, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we may submit an issue in GitHub and have some rough ideas and try to get some feedback from the community. Okay.
Yep, sounds great.
Great. Any other questions or immediate feedback for the Venus team? All right, then it's on to the foundation. Dudley, do you want to start?
Hello. So I don't have too many updates. I wanted to thank Steve from Protocol Labs for jumping in quickly to help assess a bug, a potential bug bounty the other day. I also wanted to mention that good quality auditors are quite booked up. We're looking at 6 months on average. We're looking at 8 months for Trail of Bits. We're looking at need to pull in favors to even get consensus to speak with us. I'll reach out to you guys, but otherwise, not too much unless anyone has any questions for me. It's cool.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dudley. From my end, a very quick update as well. As we transition the foundation to facilitating this meeting, once again, you may begin to see some updated meeting invitations in the future, so please accept if you plan on continuing to join this meeting on a bi-weekly basis. And the other thing is that as we look at our broader governance policies and the way that we manage these workflows, we are very focused on trying to find ways to optimize sort of this communication and workflow loop between different implementations and any potential technical fix that may come down the pipeline. So there's nothing at the moment that will need to be worked into or append any work that you're currently doing. But should there be large enhancements in the future, which we expect just as the course of things develops, we are again trying to think about how best to communicate this with everyone. And there may be opportunities in the future for this group in particular to weigh in and sort of share their thoughts about what would be most productive for them and their team. So if you have any concerns or immediate ideas you'd like to share, you're more than welcome to either here or you can message me on Slack at any time. But that being said, I want you to be aware that this is something that we're focused on because I think it is an important component for a lot of your long-term planning. Cool. All right. So it looks like there's no outstanding questions, but interrupt if there are. Also, Boris wanted to join us, but was unable to today. Is there anyone else from Fission on the line who wanted to introduce themselves real quick?
Hi. As you said, Boris wanted to be here, but he's actually hosting Danny O'Brien on our Thursday call. So hi, I'm Brooke. I'm the CTO at Fission. We're doing a few things in the Filecoin space right now, mainly around accounts, but we're also starting to poke around the VM discussions as well. Boris and I come out of the Ethereum core dev space. I'd done some spec work on the EVM, so I have a long answer in one of the FIPs on some of my opinions there. And yeah, mostly just lurking for now, but I wanted to say hi.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. It's really nice to meet you. I also know, as an aside, Boris and I are both very excited that Fission has been able to create a FIPS website for us. And it is a much nicer display than GitHub for actually reading through implementation specs. So I don't want to steal his thunder. I think he'll be interested in quickly presenting it in the coming weeks, but that's in progress as well. Cool. All right. Great. So if there's no questions for Brooke, then we can jump into our finals for presentation for today. I think Kuba is going to take over and present on the newest Snap Deals proposal, which I'm quite excited about.
Unfortunately, I didn't prepare a presentation, but yeah, I will quickly share my screen.
Sure.
With just the topic, and there's also a draft open. So Snap Deals. 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we presented like possible versions of lightweight sector update versions. So back then we knew 100% two message protocol could work. We were pretty sure that two message protocol works, and we were investigating one message protocol. Now we are security-wise, we are very convinced that one message protocol works, which would allow us to perform deal updates without any interaction with the chain, apart from one message publishing publishing these deal updates for a sector, which on its own is amazing, and it was a lot of hard work from Luca, Nicola, Rosario on our side, and so on. The protocol is lightweight. The encoding process is very lightweight. The verification on chain, we managed to also make it very, very lightweight. Unfortunately, in recent days, we hit a bit of a snag with the circuit construction, where deal data commitment calculation today is done with SHA hashes, where most of data commitments in the circuits are done with Poseidon. The issue with SHA is it's much more expensive in the circuit. So currently we are looking at ways to make the SHA data commitment work in the circuit on the scale we need for Snap Deals. There are ways to work around it. It will, of course, increase the proving costs somewhat significantly. But we are optimistic, to say the least, and if it doesn't work, we have other options also for it, which would include, for example, changing the way we do deal data commitments. That's the high-level update on that. It's a bit of happy news, a bit of more sour news, but yeah. Happens. Nicola, Ayush, you want to add something else?
No, mostly want to clarify. In the call, yeah, it was just 2 weeks ago. The status was like three message was FIP 17, 2 message was a maybe but optimistic, and 1 message was a very hopeful. How do we feel about 2 messages right now?
So 2 message can we are 100%. So 2 message, it's a different 2 message protocol than it would be different 2 message protocol than it was 2 weeks ago. But we are sure it can work, and the circuit would be comparable with 1 or 2 window post circuits. Like the proving costs for miners performing the updates. The cost goes significantly, a bit more goes up significantly for 1 message protocol. Yeah, that's what you were asking, Ayush. Jennifer?
I'm wondering, like, the new proof design, how much requirement would get put on the storage provider's hardware, or they can just use the existing one they have right now to generate all those proofs and challenges?
So the proving step, it's on apart from the proof itself, it's very, very cheap, on the order of few minutes of CPU computation. And then there's computing the proof itself, which is equivalent, it's the same type of computation that's done for window post or PowerRep, right? Window post being the benchmark of the proof size, because it's exactly 1 circuit for us.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I think we're in an interesting place here where, it sounds like we've got two good designs, basically, a non-interactive one message version and an interactive two message version that have, different pros and cons. Kuba, you're saying security wise, we're happy with both, right? So yeah, so it's almost like how do we decide which is better? Because I don't have a good sense of that. And maybe this comes down to storage providers, and we might want to survey to see kind of like which works better for them. Like, is two messages a deal breaker for them, or is that something they really, really want to avoid? Or is that better than with some time just spent waiting as opposed to more time spent on computation and using those resources? I don't really know what the answer is.
And it's also like also market fit discussion, right? Because one of them may give better, like the customers generally want faster deals. Jennifer.
Yeah, probably like miss it. So like for the two message approach and the one message one, is the total like onboarding time the same, or like one is longer than the other?
Like so for two message you have to wait 75 minutes, but the proof is much cheaper. For the one message you don't have to wait for 75 minutes, but the proof is more expensive. Not 75 minutes more expensive, but it's more expensive.
So like the way you say it's more expensive, it's gonna be result a higher gas cost for the message?
No, the gas cost will be similar. Okay. Maybe a bit different, but mostly it's about proving overhead, so proving computation on the miner's end.
I see. Yeah, thanks.
So total time is similar between the two?
It's
order of magnitude,
it's similar order of magnitude, a bit shorter for like total time would be a bit shorter for the one message protocol, like 20-30% or something like that.
Okay, yeah. What do people think instinctively? Like, I do think this comes down more to storage providers, and obviously some of us have insight here, but instinctively, which feels better? Like spending a bit longer waiting and having to send two messages, but for the most part not dedicating massive resources, versus only one message, but you're not massive resources, but you're computing more. I don't know which is better. I don't know I'm curious to know what people think.
I'm curious about like verification time for like people who are not miners, they're just running nodes. Have you guys done any benchmarks on the effects of two messages versus the one message protocol?
So the proof is, so for two message protocol, we would have to verify multiple partitions of the proof, but the proof itself is verification times wise accepts. So proof verification, snark proof verifications generally scales with the number of inputs you have into the circuit. And currently for big proofs, like for POREP or window post, we are accepting like more than 4,000 inputs into each circuit for verification. In this case, we would be looking probably at less than 10 inputs, which makes those proofs much cheaper to verify. So verification overhead, there isn't big difference, like significant difference between the two, I would say. The overhead of a chain bookkeeping on chain will be higher, probably, or I would guess order of magnitude higher than verification of the proof. Jennifer has hand.
Yeah, I think another thing we should consider is like with two message approach, it's like one message like overhead and one message approach, right? So like miners have to, like let's say if the network is congested for some reasons, and miners storage provider have to worry about like to manage two messages in a way. And in the code, I would assume we have to handle different situation as well as like we have to wait for the first message like receipt to land on chain is successful before we can proceed to the next. So it's like more complicated than just sending out one message, in my opinion. And sounds like from the time perspective and the gas perspective, they are similar. So I think that's another factor to consider as well.
Yeah, like the biggest difference is the proving overhead. So just rough numbers, like we haven't evaluated all possible optimization, like circuit optimizations yet. Roughly, we are looking at the difference between one window post proving time. So it's about five minutes versus so it's 5 minutes of GPU compute versus 30 to 40 minutes of GPU compute for the one message. That's the highest level overview I have right now. Yes.
I probably should go read the proposal myself. Sorry, I'm so bad. But one more question is are we considering is it gonna be able to do upgrade CC with deals aggregation sort of thing? So if we do the 2-message approach, there's a wait time. That means the hardware might be idle, and at the same time can storage provider to choose upgrade another CC sectors and somehow aggregating several messages together. Is that in the consideration?
If we went with the 2-message protocol, we would probably allow for how we have currently batch pre-commit. So we would allow for something like batch pre-commit, and then either batch or aggregated update itself after that. And that's also true batched or aggregated upgrade itself for 1-message protocol too. But yeah, there's the miner can just start another upgrade concurrently. They don't have to wait for one finish. So
Kuba, as you're working on making a decision about which mechanism to pursue, would it be helpful to have an invitation to one of the many storage provider meetings that are hosted next week?
I'll think about it because we still are investigating some solutions. So especially we have, so these two were 1-message versus 2-message protocol and not changing anything else. We have also the possible solution of changing how we do data commitments, so PCID or COMD calculations, which have much bigger but require bigger changes on the user side of things, and changes in deal making protocol itself, off-chain. So we are considering still our options there. But yeah, I'll probably contact you start of the next week when I know more.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome to come to one of the working groups, or if you'd like, actually, I'm looking at the discussion right now. You probably don't even need to add many more details. I've already circulated this amongst the miner working groups or storage provider working groups, but if you want me to bring attention to anything in particular, we could sort of gauge some preliminary feedback that way too. So
awesome. Yeah, I'll update it when we know more, because
yeah,
it's the issue of proving overhead is still quite fresh, and yeah, we'll still discovering stuff around it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I initially thought that the discussion post was quite short and something maybe omitted, but it looks like it's just summarized quite nicely. So I think we're good for now.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Quick question, Caitlin, actually. Do we have similar storage client working groups? I ask because a lot of this decision making does come down, a lot of how this decision should be made comes down to what clients want. Like, is there a burning need to get deals active faster? So to reduce the window between when I decide I want to store some data to when it goes live, or what the size of the deals involved will be. There's a lot of interesting factors here that I don't have a lot of great insight into. So I was wondering if you have any ideas about sources of information for those kinds of questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. And as far as I'm aware, there's no standing work group for those types of things. My interpretation of this is that a lot of the larger storage providers will work directly with their identified clients, but obviously they keep those conversations private. It might actually be worth looking into seeing if they would be willing to bring even a single large scale client that they'd want to work with. Yeah, we can follow up offline if you want to do this. I think we can put it together, but there are some challenges.
Yeah, but also we should consider, when we say a client working group, we should chime in the brokers as well, like Web3 storage, S3, and other applications too, because eventually they might be the main platform the deals coming from, right? In a way, so that would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think so also. We could create like a storage provider client, like technical working group or summit. And if we do, we'd probably want to aggregate as many potential proposals into like one session as possible, especially since so many of them touch on similar topics.
So there is a channel set up in the Filecoin Slack called hashtag onboarding, which we will be adding a lot of like brokers and clients into that so that they can like onboard. So storage provider can help onboarding their like data and deals into the network. So I think it will be great to start a conversation there as well.
Sure. And it looks like this channel only has, well, now 12 members. But just a notice to everyone else in this call that if you're curious and following up on this, that you might want to join as well, because you're probably not already in it. Great. All right. Anything else that someone wants to bring up related, I think, specifically to Snap deals? All right. Well, thanks again, Kuba. Since we do have about 10 or so extra minutes left on this call, I think it would also be great, not to put Brooklyn on the spot. I know you did want to lurk in this first meeting, but since we do have the time, if you'd like to discuss EVM integrations, the floor is yours. I think in the past, as Ayush pointed out to me, that Steb has also had some thoughts in this regard, and I thought it might be a good forum for you guys to sort of speak publicly with the rest of the group, if you'd like.
I mean, yeah, sure. Most of my thoughts, or at least high-level thoughts, were in that post. I guess the big major points are, so EVM does seem to be the de facto standard increasingly, despite its many flaws. I still think that there's possible ways of doing interoperability or even bytecode to bytecode transpilation. In the original post, Juan had mentioned potentially having multiple VMs over time. I think that's a very scary idea, especially when you have so much security involved. And scoping down the semantics of a VM to the exact needs of Filecoin are potentially makes the security problems a lot more tractable. There's a lot of things that Filecoin could do that a lot of other chains can't do, like memoizing or hotspot optimizing everybody else's data, or keeping the results of computations so that you never have to run them again. You can just essentially do a large memoization table, but at web scale, that are interesting, but that don't necessarily become just directly EVM compatible out of the box. If the EVM is the direction that Filecoin wants to go, there's a lot of work there to be done around exactly how to do the integration. Should there be any additional opcodes or precompiles? Is there an equivalent system like ENS to look things up by name rather than always having to grab the exact contract address? And there's a few things that we can take from learnings from Ethereum and just apply immediately, like having really good audited, battle-hardened, blessed contracts that everybody calls into and make those composable, rather than having people redeploying potentially broken versions of the same contracts over and over again, which works very well with the actor model view that is in Filecoin right now. So, but I realize that that's pretty broad. It's mainly a question of where does this community want to go with that from here to narrow it down.
I guess to give you some of my perspective here, like at the moment, I'm currently leaning towards WASM with some form of EVM compatibility, either translation or slightly compiling. But we haven't made any final decisions here. The current plan is basically implement something, then compile our current actors to that something, then like basically test that out, but don't actually make any network breaking changes. Just make sure that it's sort of like gas charges just magically stay the same for now. And then we can see sort of what works. And then when we have something that works, then we can actually deploy it and make it user customizable. But some of the interesting tidbits we have is like we use IPLD instead of as a flat memory. This gives a lot of cool features, but it also increases in complexity. So the biggest hurdle I'm hitting right now is like, okay, I need to be able to like sort of decode from this DAG and then write data back and make sure that like all the data is still reachable, or is all the data I need to still reachable. On the other hand, it's really cool because it means like I can, at least I believe, like send DAGs from one actor to another, which means like I can do very efficient like data passing without actually having to copy all of the data, which could open up the room for things like sandbox calling, or like I call some other actor or some other static method with like basically all of my state, and it can do whatever it wants with all of my state, but it can't actually write back to it, and it can give me like a transform version that I can then like work over and make sure it's correct. So yeah, that's my current thinking. There is a channel in the Filecoin Slack called FVM. And that's where I've been posting some updates and some docs. I've actually just now made the doc public, but I think the link there should, the link there should still work. So if you click on that link, you should get access to the document or to the current design, like brainstorming blurb that I have right now. So it's not very well organized, I'm sorry. But I really
I have a question actually with the kind of the paradigm that we are thinking of using, or not paradigm, but like basically like we have a system that's working, we have like all these actors and stuff, and we have like VM. So I guess like kind of maybe this is a little bit far down the line, but like kind of what is the way that we're gonna implant this VM into the system? Like, is the VM going to be like a separate execution layer, as in like, another actor, like a VM actor or something like that, that is like sort of sandbox, but sort of not sandbox, but has an interface to the existing VM? Or is, everything, are we going to replace the whole execution layer with this this WASM VM or EVM or whatever, and then re-implement all the actors and have those live inside of there?
So we've discussed both of these. I think also linked in here is probably a Google Doc that goes over the options here. Basically, that's the multi-VM versus the single VM world. Like we've talked about a world where we have multiple VMs, and that would be the world where like, okay, we have like the sort of like the native or built-in VM or actors, and then we have like the EVM and an FVM or WASM VM or whatever, kind of like all floating around. That's where we started. Our concerns there is it is a bit tricky to sort of work between all of these and make sure that calling works correctly, and then performance and security and maintainability. There are a bunch of questions here, so like, maybe we end up going with something like this but lighter weight. But at the moment, we're looking more towards it, like, okay, just like actually like not even re-implement these actors, but literally take existing actors, for example, the REST ones, and then just compile them into WASM. Like in the ideal world, that would be possible, and those would be viable actors. We would need to modify the runtime, but I know like in Go at least, like the runtime is fairly well sort of separated out from the actors, and I believe from what I've seen in Rust as well, they appear to be pretty well separated as well. So it should be possible to kind of like say, okay, here is the new like WASM runtime, shove that in, take the actors with very little modification Rust, compile them together, and then just ship that as a set of actors. So that's kind of where I'd like to be at the moment, if that makes sense.
Any other thoughts or buy-in on this topic?
I'm sure you've detailed this already, but if you want to give the 1-minute version of why you're leaning towards WASM.
Well, so it's a really wonderful, beautiful VM. It's like I read the specs, and like it's basically, it feels like it's really designed for cases like this, actually, where like you can see how like control flow is typed. You even have typed loops. So it's very easy to analyze code and to actually like statically verify their properties and optimize. It has wide support. So there are many VMs that already exist, so people can kind of just pull off whatever VM they happen to like. That is really one of our goals here. Like we're I at least do not want to modify the VM in any way. I want to be able to just take an off-the-shelf VM. If I need to do any like any instrumentation, that'll be done at the bytecode level, and just kind of leave it at that. Yeah, as Brooklyn was noting, the EVM has better crypto actually, because the wide numbers. This is unfortunate, but I think we can probably work around this by basically providing runtime libraries for a lot of use cases, because like most of these cases will just be implemented in the runtime. So like I mean personally, Internet would love this as well. Like I would love to have some kind of like built-in Snark library. That would be really cool. Yeah, so that really is my leaning there. It's the fact that like a lot of people are looking at the EVM. There are a lot of implementations, and it was sort of well designed from the ground up, based on like many years of VM research.
Yep, seems legit. Thanks.
About those runtime libraries, were you thinking about plugging them in essentially as precompile addresses, or like how would you actually get that out of not just compiled onto WASM, but to like maybe get more native performance?
I don't know. So like I do expect there to be a lot of runtime libraries like in WASM. Like actually, I love to use the WASM imports for this, because everything is content addressed with CIDs. You can kind of just like import a CID, and as long as it's in the system, you're allowed to upload your actor. So also like just a lot of shared static imports. But that's not necessarily going to fix this. One way of dealing with this is like we could say, well, I see you're trying to import this WASM thing. We actually have this faster thing. I'm just going to use the faster thing. The problem here is gas, because like if you're doing that, like yes, I guess you could just make the changes run magically faster, but you would still end up charging more gas if you're just charging the naive correct amount of gas. Yeah. So the other way to do this is to say, well, like at some point, sort of the network agrees that calling into this sort of blessed library should cost this much. It's less, and then like if you decide not to implement that, okay, you could use the WASM implementation. You might like your validation times might be slightly slower, but that's your choice. I think that's probably the best trade-off there, but I don't know. Like I do know that like for some of these, they might end up just being like special syscalls. For example, like we might need to have special syscalls for like specific types of hashing and stuff like that. I'd like to avoid that as much as possible, but that might be necessary for some performance. For example, to avoid having to like sort of like make a call from one WASM module into the runtime into another WASM module into the but I don't know. I'd love more thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's super tricky, especially with WASM, because as you mentioned, the modules, you have to load and unload external data, right, which is expensive. Ethereum has taken the approach many times of exactly as you said, saying, well, when I call into this address, I'm actually going to hop out of the VM, execute this code, and that's going to cost this much gas.
Yep.
And so it becomes essentially a extremely inelegant external opcode, but it works because then you don't have to modify the VM at all. Doing that directly in the ISA makes sense, but if you don't want to modify the VM, then that's kind of the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of cases where you'll be able to do automatic gas calculation, which is essentially just hotspot optimizing your cost dynamics, right? So you know that calling it this contract or this code will always take this much gas. So you can just say, well, we don't actually have to calculate that at runtime. We can just do that at the top and not have to do each individual thing. And that's having to write that code then means that you have to do it in solve this case for these precompiles. Also compiling down when you have gas calculation, you're going to have to inject the gas per instruction from WASM. So it's not just direct, you'll be able to use any tooling, which also is kind of frustrating. But you still get, like obviously WASM's the new hotness right now, so it has all the tooling. So you might be able to borrow some stuff from eWASM, which was the attempt at putting WASM into Ethereum. They didn't get super far. mainly because it doesn't fit their use case as well as the EVM, but WASM probably for ETH2. Maybe there'll be more more tooling. Yeah, but that's to say that this is a tricky problem, doing precompiles of well-known addresses and maybe giving them names in the compiler so that people don't have to remember and paste hex all the time, can be a helpful way of doing it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have some kind of registry. I would assume that, or I prefer if all this stuff is handled sort of at compile time. Yeah.
Yeah,
that is another registry. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the other kind of complicated thing over here, obviously in Filecoin, is kind of the idea of system contracts, right? Where like consensus is going to require to call into some of these contracts actors to figure out whether something is valid, whether block production is valid, and so on, which is fine. It's just kind of a weird handshake that happens, but there are other protocols that have similar things, especially in staking blockchains. So. But it's a messy handshake that happens there, so that'll be interesting to get right as well.
Well, I assume in some cases this will be like instead of sort of like directly looking at, because currently we effectively just inspect the state of the minor actor and stuff like that. I assume we won't be doing that. Instead, I assume you will have some kind of like local read-only call into probably the reward or the power, actually I guess the power actor, and you say, hey, power actor, could this miner mine this block? And then it will tell you yes or no. That's my assumption.
You know, another approach to this would be to create a higher level intermediate representation, IR, that compiles nicely down to WASM and not go all the way down to WASM as the spec. And then you can put whatever semantics you want up here and then have it compile down nicely.
For what? For user contracts or for which contracts?
For the entire system, and put in there all of the system calls that you need, right? And then compile it down to WASM or any other target, right?
My concern there is tooling. Like I would like to be able to compile from arbitrary languages and then instrument after the fact, rather than sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so WASM, one of WASM's big design goals was to be a good backend for the LLVM. So most of the compiling that you're getting, everything compiles down to WASM, is because of the LLVM.
Yeah.
So if you have something that goes from your language to LLVM, it'll then go down to WASM very nicely, and you'll get all of the LLVM tooling and all of the tooling above the WASM bytecode.
Yeah, I'm still hesitant to do that just because like the LLVM bytecode is not stable. It really wasn't designed for that. So like I don't want to basically say like, okay, the network accepts LLVM code. That was one of the options we looked at, but there was concerns there about that. It also means like we'd be kind of like requiring the LLVM for everything. Okay, but we're effectively requiring it. I'd still prefer, like, I guess the question really is like, what would the goal here be? I guess I don't know why. Like, so I guess yeah, fine. So what is your goal here? Why do you think we need to compile that something else about WASM?
Sorry, I missed the last couple.
Sorry. I guess my question here is like, why do you feel that we need to compile that to some other intermediary and not just directly to WASM?
Because you get a lot more control over what's in your semantics, what's in your world, right? Rather than having to say, well, we do WASM except for these exceptions, right? And having to, inject codes through all of the other, WASM calls and, check that those are actually there. You do something at a higher level that maps really nicely down below. And so you still get all of the WASM, niceties, but you're just doing something that's more tailored to your use case.
Yeah, some of them. Like, I guess I don't think that's going to be okay. Now, obviously you probably have more experience here. From what I've read, it doesn't look like it's too hard to do that because WASM is pretty easy to just parse and instrument. So it should be pretty straightforward. Just go through and say, okay, which like instructions are here? Oh, we don't allow this instruction. Like, reject the module. Or like, okay, this is a branch here. It's like all the branches and loops and everything are typed, so I can very quickly like say, okay, this is where the branch ends. This is where it begins. This is how much gas section we'll use, and just like add instructions throughout the entire system. It should, I think, make that easier. like I think it should effectively be the same as LLVM bytecode in that respect, from what I can tell. But again, I haven't actually tried to implement that part yet, so I don't know.
You're definitely right that it's more it's much easier to do static analysis on than the EVM. So like definitely thumbs up for WASM over EVM for sure. Except for crypto stuff, but depends on how much crypto you're expecting to do.
I guess, but again, like the reason I think like I would like to just sort of target WASM directly instead of saying, well, you have to use something else as an intermediary, is then like if that's something else change, like basically WASM is being adopted by a lot of browsers and stuff like that, so I'm expecting it to sort of ossify a bit, which will actually be helpful for us. Like the LLVM really is very much like it's an intermediate representation used by a compiler that changes over time. It is very specific to that compiler as well. And as far as I understand, it's also actually quite a bit wider than WASM, like because it supports like arbitrary with ints and a bunch of other like optimization specific things and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think your first point there is well taken about the LLVMs. You're really repurposing something else here, but I still kind of like the idea. But yeah, lots going on here. This conversation could probably go on for a long while.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But I recommend you guys jump in the FEM Slack room. It's currently a bit dead, but I'd love to have more discussions there. Also, comment on the current design exploration document. It's not very fleshed out, so I apologize if you have difficulty figuring out where is what and what is where.
That's great. Also, too, as we begin to like continue to work on this issue, we can also carve time out at future meetings to revisit it. And Brooklyn, of course, you're welcome to join with Boris or on your own anytime in the future as well. So great. Well, if no one else has anything to add, this has been a great meeting. I appreciate you guys letting me step in and help facilitate today and going forward. As always, you'll see materials posted online in the TPM GitHub. And if there's anything between now and our next meeting, you're welcome to reach out to myself or I think Ayush still for the meantime, and we can make sure that it's moved over to the agenda or wherever else it needs to be. So. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.